The number one DraftKings play in week 4 is in this game. So this is your chance to finally smash in DFS. Here's how.
The Ravens are having all this success, but it's come in a really weird fashion, right? Like if you go back to last year, if you remember on Thursday night, the Baltimore Ravens played the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins basically just like spammed like cover zero blitzes, right? It was like a big thing. And like the cat was out of the bag and teams were like, well, we're just going to start blitzing Lamar Jackson too. And for the rest of the season, Lamar Jackson was one of the worst passers against the blitz the rest of the year. Now they had some injuries and stuff up front that contributed to that. But we've seen a rollover to the start of this season where teams, at least through 3 weeks, have wanted to aggressively blitz Lamar Jackson. He was blitzed on 45% of his dropbacks last week by the Patriots, but he is the number one passer against the blitz. He has solved all those kind of problems, right? He's averaging 12 yards per pass attempt against the blitz. It's first in the NFL. He has an 83.3% completion rate against the blitz. Absolutely bonkers, right? Like insane against the blitz to have these kind of numbers. So what happens when teams dial back, right? Because against zone coverage or when teams only play rush 4 or fewer passers so far, Lamar Jackson has completed 53% of his passes, dead last in the NFL, and he has a 6.7 yards per pass attempt, 20th. In EPA per dropback, he's 31st when teams only rush 4 or fewer defenders. So what happens when teams get religion? Well, we don't have to worry about that here, the cat and mouse game, because the Bills just don't blitz. They've blitzed 4 times all year. That's it through 3 weeks. So he's not getting blitzed here. So I'm very curious to see how in structure the Ravens play, because the passing game in structure, like when teams only rush 4, has been awful. So I'm very curious if this is maybe a potential regression spot. Now Lamar, like he's gonna always offer that ceiling. But I'm very curious here if maybe there's some potential here that he ends up going maybe a little bit over-owned if he doesn't able to hit like those in structure passing plays when the Bills are only rushing 4.
Yeah, I wonder if that could easily affect Mark Andrews too then, right? Who's been going just nuclear. He's top 5 in percentage of team air yards right now, over 10 targets in 2 straight games, 5 red zone targets, 2 touchdowns on those last week. He's been going nuts, and I think he's going to be relatively popular because people are going to want access to this game, right?
And there's no Travis Kelce on the slate. And if you've been following fantasy for the opening 3 weeks of 2022, there are 2 good tight ends in fantasy football, and it's those 2 guys. A lot of people this week have been talking about how exciting is that Tyler Conklin is the tight end 3. Tyler Conklin being the tight end 3 in fantasy tells me that there's 2 good tight ends.
Why is that exciting? Football. That's the worst.
Right. But yeah, you see the run out for Mark Andrews, and listen, he is getting an absorbent amount of targets that even for him leading the Ravens in targets and air yards, all these things like have to just be pulled back. The last 2 weeks, he has 38% and 48% of the team targets. Like, we know he's going to lead the Ravens in targets, but like having a guy get like that amount of targets, like there's going to be immediate recoil, right? We saw this with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in week 1, where A.J. Brown has 52% of the team targets, right? And it levels off a little bit. We saw with Devontae Adams in week 1, he had 50% of team targets. It levels off. Like those numbers where guys are pushing half of the team targets, like it's going to come back. It's just going to pull back. Now, the issue of playing Andrews on a slate where there's no Kelce is kind of one of those things. Like, you either play him because you want the hammer over the field, or you fade him because you only need one player to do bad, right? Like, true. If Mark Andrews doesn't hit, then you're just with everyone else in the field of bad tight ends, and that's kind of the run out you're hoping for. Yeah. But Rashad Bateman's been incredible. They're just not playing him, which is crazy. He's had an electric highlight reel play. He's got to catch over 30 yards in all 3 games, but he has now run a route on fewer than 80% of the team dropbacks in all 3 games. He's run a route on 74.8% of the team dropbacks for the season. That's 60th among all wide receivers. So he's not even getting like that Marquise Brown run out. I would think that would have to progress and him to be on the field more. It just hasn't happened yet for him, but it's forced Bateman to live as like this all or nothing type of player. You saw in week 1, he had the 55-yard touchdown, gets him there. Week 2, he's the 75-yard touchdown, gets him there. Well, doesn't have that last week, and what happens? Nothing. We got nothing. So we do need kind of that boomer bust play. We need that kind of upside for him. But in tournaments, from like a tournament stance, like he is kind of the upside guy. If you can't fit Andrews in, he would be the next guy because he's averaging 28 yards per catch. Like if you're looking for a big play at his price, that's the what you're looking for.
You have any concerns that J.K. Dobbins isn't going to be kind of worked in as quickly as we once thought? Like last week, obviously, his first game back wasn't great from a volume perspective. I think that he could be a guy that people might try and make work on game stacks for this game, though. At 5,300, do you have any interest in Dobbins? Or you kind of want to see it first?
I mean, he is kind of like a just leap of faith play. I mean, if you believe that the Bills, well, the Bills definitely have shown it. Like, we don't even have to believe it. They aren't going to blitz. And they're going to play coverage that, J.K. Dobbins would be like the combatant for that, right? Like he would just have more work. The only bugaboo there is that it's only his second game back, and he only played 43% of the snaps last week. Where does the jump go? We would want him to be a full-time player in that role, right? So he does take a leap of faith there. Also, Buffalo has been awesome against the run so far to start the year. They've allowed the fewest receiving points to running backs. They've allowed the second fewest yards per carry to running backs. So it's not even like we're getting like a great run out there. You need like the Chase Edmonds situation where they're at the 1 yard line and you get those touchdowns. That's kind of what we're hoping for. I wouldn't push back against it in like a game onslaught, because I do think if teams start to not blitz Lamar Jackson more and just play more coverage, that inherently just means like the Ravens are going to start to run the football more. And J.K. Dobbins would be the beneficiary in that regard. He just does take a step of faith in terms of we just don't know where the playing time is going to rise to.
That's fair. That's fair. One thing that we do know is probably going to remain constant is Stephon Diggs is a straight baller. I think he's probably going to be the most highly owned player in this game, but he's 8,400. So I think just the single stacks with Diggs and with Josh Allen are probably going to be the route a lot of people go in this game. But how do you feel about the top of Buffalo? Because now these guys are pretty expensive. Like it definitely handcuffs certain things you can do with your lineup if you go with that premium stack.
Yeah, I think looking at it from a top-down stance, I love Josh Allen a lot more than Lamar Jackson here. For the reasons we laid out with Lamar Jackson, but then two, this Ravens defense, like it just keeps happening. Like, and it's not even like really fully injury based, because all their starters are on the field. Marcus Williams, starter. Chuck Clark, starter. Marlon Humphrey, starter. Marcus Peters, starter. And it's one thing when you're giving up plays to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like you're getting beat over the top by those guys. They allowed 8 passing plays of 20 or more yards to the New England Patriots last week. Wow. The New England Patriots. Like, the Ravens just keep getting hammered. They just keep giving up explosive pass plays. And now Josh Allen's coming into town with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Like, yeah, I mean, I feel really good about that Buffalo passing game. They're going to need some wind that maybe is projected there early in the week to really kind of come through to slow them down, because the Ravens just have had so many miscommunication errors in the back end. The pass rush isn't what it was, from a few years ago, and that's been a problem. So I'm pretty much in on this Bills passing game coming into this when we look at this from this matchup stance.
Yeah, per our official tools partner, Run the Sims, Josh Allen, more than 280.5 passing yards is a 70.4% favorite to win on PrizePicks this week, which is crazy. You don't see that stood out to me because you don't really see a lot of the overs on passing yards very often. So yeah, that remains the number one way to support the show is to give PrizePicks a try this week using the link in the description. If you do use code HOLKA, it helps the channel. So thank you so much. And you can secure that $100 free bet. We do like free.
It has to be one of the highest even lines for quarterback passing yards, and still 70% implied.
Still 70%, which is crazy. And yeah, I guess we haven't probably talked about it yet on this video, but that's simulating the slate 10,000 times. So they feel pretty good about, I guess they're right in lockstep with you there, Reeves, that they like Josh Allen a ton this week. So I'm in on that. Outside of Diggs, do we have any interest in Gabe Davis or going back to Devin Singletary in this one?
Yeah, I still think you're interested in the ancillary pieces here a little bit. I would favor Gabe Davis a little more than Isaiah McKenzie, just because we know we're still getting the run out. Even coming off the ankle injury, he was a full-time player again. He was in on the field for 96% of the dropbacks. He's just always on the field because he's such a good run blocker. He did drop a touchdown, but that's the Gabe Davis life. We're going to live with three. Right. Gabe Davis is going to have 3 for 37s, but he's also going to pepper in the multi-touchdown games. Mm-hmm. And to me, when you're on onslaughting games, that's the kind of guy I like. I'll live missing on the 3 for 37s if I can run into those hammer weeks. McKenzie, I think, is a little less interesting because of how the setup was last week compared to this week. So he was the guy that was on fire in the beginning of that game because the Dolphins were so blitz heavy, and he was the hot guy, right? He was getting all of those, all of those blitz targets early in the game. And then Then the Dolphins said, like, we're not even getting home. The blitz isn't even getting there. Like, let's stop blitzing altogether. And then McKenzie cooled down in the second half a little bit. So I don't think the Ravens are really going to be a team that puts a lot of pressure on Josh Allen from a blitz stance. So I don't know if McKenzie has such a good run out, but, I'm interested in him a little bit too. If you need to save salary, he would be kind of the next guy. Devin Singletary, not so much. I'm not going to chase what happened last week because you look at the 11 targets. One, they're aided because they dropped back 73 times, right? Like the raw targets went along for the ride. And the other thing was the pressure, right? Like they went to Devin Singletary early in that game because they didn't trust either of the other running backs in pass protection. He ended up pass blocking 16 times in that game. It was a career high for him. So if the Ravens are going to bring a lot of blitzes on Josh Allen, then yeah, Devin Singletary is going to be on the field a lot. But like this was a guy through 2 weeks only had 5 targets. Like it feels like very circumstantial how he got those targets last week, and I don't really want to chase them. And then we've still seen them rotate in Zach Moss and James Cook in enough to where you don't really just feel good about like his floor either. So very tough player to kind of chase with Devin Singletary.
This game's kind of interesting. I'm curious how we're going to go ahead and build a lineup for this one. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys to check out the worksheet over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. I know Reeves is slaving over that thing for hours and hours and hours and hours every single week. So do him a solid and check that out. Obviously, my number one focus this year is to bring you guys the best premium newsletter possible. So if you haven't checked that out, you've been missing out. We've been crushing it, especially in the PrizePicks streets, but obviously a lot of DFS stuff going on over there. There is a free 7-day trial, completely risk-free. So let me know in the comments what you think. So go ahead and try it out this week if you haven't already. Reeves, on DraftKings, let's go ahead and build a team for a smaller field tournament per usual. If we are going to stack up this game, it sounds like you're definitely on the Allen side of this one.
Yeah, I'm on the Allen side, and I think if people play Allen, they're going to play Diggs, so we're going to be a little different and probably add Gabe Davis.
So we want to go the double. All right. On the Baltimore side, how do you want to approach this? Do we want to go after Bateman at 5,600?
I think with us taking Gabe Davis and his salary on, that it's going to be really hard to fit Andrews in this team.
Right.
So I think we would have to go the Bateman route.
Okay. We're good with Bateman. I can't remember. I guess spoiler alert on the other game that we went through. We put in one defense from either Chicago or the Giants, I think, is one of those ways that a lot of people are going to go. So I can't remember which one we did. But yeah, I think we went Bears because they're a little bit cheaper. Do we want to try and make Giants?
Yeah, we can just stick Bears in as a placeholder. And obviously these things like, if you're trying to tag along and try to chase some of these lineups, like, please use whatever defense you want.
Right. Yeah. This is like by the end of the week, this is probably not a lineup you want to just like randomly throw in a tournament. Defense is a great spot to try and I guess do things a little different than us. We're just going to throw in kind of a placeholder for now. I think that's probably going to be one of the chalk defenses anyway, which you probably don't want to do. 4,500 the rest of the way, Reeves. We need some salary relief here.
I've got a really gross mini for you.
I'm in. I love.
Are you ready for it?
Yep.
Rashad Penny and TJ Hawkinson.
Oh. This Hawkinson stuff I have like PTSD for because we were talking about it before we jumped on. I was like trying really hard to avoid these like really popular tight end plays last week, especially on the Showdown slate. So I had all the good players in that game, had a lot of Dalvin, had a lot of Justin Jefferson, had a lot of DeAndre Swift. Turns out you needed Chalk Hawkinson and then Jamal Williams to win on Showdown last week for that Minnesota and Detroit game. But yeah, Hawkinson, sure, 4,100. He's fine, I guess. I'm with you.
Yeah, Rashad Penny's probably one of my favorite GPP plays of the weekend. With the way Detroit's been run on so far to start the year, he completely dominated snaps last week. He's 4,900, which we like too, and we know he has like that multi-touchdown kind of ceiling. And obviously, when these teams played last year, he absolutely eviscerated them. So I do kind of like him as kind of like a contrarian pick too, because Jamal Williams is going to be so popular in that same game. But yeah, so we'll do that mini, free up some salary. I still think we need a lot of salary.
I was going to say, is this a Richie James team? Because he's 4K and we're at 4,600
I think he has to be,
the rest
right?
of the way. Yeah, I think he has to be. So we got Richie James.
And then if you want to go down at defense, you could potentially go up to like Zay Jones to save a couple hundred. And then I think that should just give us like Ramondre Stevenson money.
Yep. Could be Dobbins, could be Stevenson.
Oh, it could be Dobbins. Yeah, we can stick Dobbins on this team if we want to just go crazy.
Let's go ahead and put Dobbins in just because it gives us a little bit more access to it.